dear Mrs. Del Nord, dear Professor Felli, dear Professor Bologna, dear Giulio. It is a great honor for me to be invited to represent the UIA Public Healthcare Group. And you know that Romano was one of the great foundations of our association. And, well, when there is a heaven, and I'm convinced there is a heaven, I think healthcare architects should have a share in this heaven. And so I'm convinced Romano is working on wonderful hospital projects, divine projects, and he's looking on us with little regret, but as well with a well-knowing that he's now not bound anymore to limitations, constraints, and cost. So I want to take you to a journey, the outcomes of the interdisciplinary workshop about maintaining costs in healthcare projects. I want to spend some words about our group. The United International Architects is a group of architects gathering 6 million architects worldwide. Here we see the conference in Durban and our old president, Albert Dupleix. The headquarters is in France, in Paris, and it was founded in 1955. And our group was founded in 1957 in Geneva. We had 60 participants, and it is a big organization concerning, and the only one I know, about healthcare architecture. Our vision is to bring healthcare architecture to the next level, to exchange internationally, and to profit from our experiences. We have a mission as well to, you can see our organization as a body of knowledge. It's open source. It means everybody can access to the knowledge and everybody can participate as long as he's architect and registered in an order of architects. We are closely collaborating with the World Health Organization in Geneva and the IHF, International Hospital Federation, and as well with other organizations worldwide. Here you see we have a director. Actually, it's Cliff Harvey from Toronto, who follows Warren Kerr, and before it was George Mann. We are closely working with University Network, from Texas A&M to Dresden, Berlin in Germany, to Thessaloniki in Greece, covering till Malaysia and Singapore, all universities involved in healthcare architecture. Here are other associations like Architects for Health or the new coming International Health Association. We are organized in seminars. Every year we organize a seminar. The first one, the last one was in London last year. During these seminars, we have visits. We have the seminar with the conferences, and we have an annual meeting and our annual gala dinner. This was Toronto. Then we were in Durban in 2015, in Dalian in China, then in Kenya in 2016, 2017 London. Yes, and this year we are in Paris from 29th to 31st of May. All proceedings in the past were published by Romano, and we can hardly imagine how we can continue without him. So it's a big challenge for us, because he was doing a great job together with Thesis to publish the proceedings that are available on internet by Amazon. You can look, they are all by international search book numbers referenced. And he was in charge of our workshop programs, and this is the outcomes of our workshop for the containing cost in healthcare projects. And he was as well involved in the GUPA. GUPA is a global university program in healthcare architecture, gathering all the people involved in teaching and education for healthcare architecture. Well, the French section was absent for 30 years. And when we were in 2008 invited to present our project, Claude Vasconi was meeting Romano, and Romano was telling him, listen, you have to bring back the French into our group. And because everything is processed in English, Claude said to me, at this time it's up to you because you're the only one who speaks English in our office. So France and Italy have something in common. In 2005, the World Health Organization was making a benchmarking of healthcare systems. France and Italy were placed on the first in healthcare. So our group was traveling to Japan, to America, Texas A&M, to London, and this year to Brazil to meet the other members and to start an exchange program. I want to quickly present you the outcomings of our workshop program. First, I want to talk about the hospital without walls, then the global coast approach, and I will give a short outlook at the end. The workshop was organized between the International Hospital Federation and the Public Health Group, together with THESIS, between operators, who are the International Hospital Federation, and architects. UIA THESIS is in the middle and bringing together the two groups. We started in 2014 with a big workshop here in Florence, and we had the last presentation in Durban during the IHF Health Forum in 2016. Romano organized, as usually, in a perfect manner, this workshop, and it would have not been Romano if he wouldn't have not organized as well a cultural program, because for him it was not only working, but as well bringing people together, bringing as well the people to the way that we can work and exchange in a cultural level. The theme, of course, was quickly found. Everybody is concerned about costs of healthcare facilities. It's an important and increasing point since the 2008 financial crisis. It's a topic of global relevance in every part of the world. If it's a developed country or in Africa or we're going to Asia, everywhere cost is a big theme. And so the idea was to make an academic program, but to bring rule of thumb. It means to bring application of the outcomings of this research. It should not be a book that you put in the shelf. It should be a guide that brings you to the execution of how to run a healthcare project. So I consider myself to be part of the soup where we have all the knowledge. We have the crystallization. The crystal was Romano because he was putting it in shape and he was putting it in a form that we could really refine from crude oil, refine it to get the gasoline to use it. And so the data collection is on the side of all, while we have seldomly people like Romano who have on the one side the architectural talent to build, on the other side the academic talent to crystallize theory. The problems in building hospitals today is that the pace of change in healthcare goes quick, while hospital projects and their delivery is always delayed and getting longer and longer. So we have to find ways to improve the way we are building hospitals and how we approach the way. So innovation can help, but we have as well to think about flexibility and resilience. And we have to reevaluate the various procedures and stages in decision-making. And the balance between spatial design and operating costs of construction has to be considered. We have as well a shifting role of hospitals in today's society. So we are building more hospitals participate in the community life. They should be well-functioning machines in order to optimal serve and deliver healthcare. But we have as well a strong relationship between the hospital and other healthcare facilities. We should promote healthy lifestyle, and not become, at the end, shops for organ repair. Family satisfaction as well is an important factor in a competitive market where globalization of healthcare is putting strains on all healthcare providers. Then we have to think as well about recruiting and retaining the highest quality medical staff. and we have to treat patients in order to discharge them as quick as possible. The hospital without walls is a new concept, and we have here the outcomings of one of our workshops. It was designed here in Florence, and David Allison from Clemson University put it in this wonderful drawing. So we have the core hospital, and we have surrounded facilities. And here we have an example of Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, where we were in 2014 visiting the different departments. And they have, in fact, a circle of care, upfront hospitals that are involved in the community and not anymore in the hospital itself. I was asking Romano, but how can this work? And he said, you can try it. We were approached by Hong Kong at this time in 2015, and they said, Joanna Hutung, that she has a problem in addressing healthcare for diabetes, for children struck by diabetes. And they cannot live in the hospital because they won't reach the population where children get no care because the parents are afraid to come to hospital because of the cost. And the children are as well don't want to go to the hospital. So I was asking Romano, we can make a first approach. And he said, make a project. Pick a site, make a virtual project, and present it to the client. So we said, okay, we can go in a loft, we can find a structure in a factory in Kuntong area that's outside, next to Hong Kong, but outside. It's not so expensive. And we made some visualizations, and still you see everything is white, everything is a little bit looking clinical. And this was the first center of excellence that was presented to the client. And the client said, okay, now we have to find the funding and the money for the project. So we organized a gala dinner. And one day they called us, okay, we have enough money. We bought B17. It's in Kuntong area. We found a 100 square meters factory. Now you have to make the project, but we have no budget. So we made a project. It's a very simple project. What we need is a kitchen, a teaching kitchen. We need a playground. We need offices. We need a discrete room that can be opened or closed for discussions with the patients. And so we were going on, and within 3 months, we were providing the center of excellence. That is, for ourselves, a big surprise because we only spent $90,000 on this project, and it has a big impact on the daily work for the diabetes. Now we have the different coasts. What are the coasts? We have a global coast to consider when we talk about hospitals. It doesn't make sense only to talk about building cost. We have as well the in-use cost or operation cost, and we have life cycle cost and social cost. While discussing with Romano, we were very clear that we have to find ways how these costs can be addressed and reduced. Here we see a graphic that is showing from pre-design our way, how we can, don't know if you see it, yes. So we have the timeline and we have the cost. So more the project progresses, the costs go up in a steep way, while the possibility to interact or with the project diminishes quickly. So what we try to do in a project is to shift all decisions in an early pre-design stage. When we talk about cost as well, we have the initial cost of building and we have the operating cost, life cycle cost, but as well social cost. So considering how can we shift to an early stage, and there we are coming to the building information modeling, where we can shift decisions in an earlier stage because we have more information, because our clients can better understand the product because they have a 3D model instead of having 2D plans. And we have virtual reality where people can interact and can see how the space will look like. So it's much better to take in an early stage decisions. On the other side, we have lean-led design. It's a new way of thinking, a process-driven design of our hospitals, with a volume map streaming. It means we put the client in the middle of our interest, and we look how the client goes through the hospital and where he loses time. So we can optimize the way the client or the patient is treated. This is a shift in the way we are working with architects, and Romano was putting together with me these points because we were quite aware that this means that we have no more the traditional way where the architect focuses on the design, but we have to make observation at point of work. We have to pull the value to the patient. It means the patient, we have to look at the patient and how he runs through the hospital. So we have less traditional way, and we have a horizontal hierarchy in the working group. It means we involve all the people who are in the hospital to get better outcomes. This is the way it's organized with workshops and with mock-ups to visualize the way it can be done. The next point is we have to learn to use the metrics. There are factors, of course, we can influence in costs, but there are a lot of factors we cannot. So we started to interest ourselves for the red marked points. So everything that is design cost and factors influencing design decisions. The biggest problem today is that many stakeholders are involved, and we have no clear vision at what point who can lead and who can make decisions. So we were making and working on a matrix that is facilitating, on one hand, the timeline, on the other hand, the stakeholders, and who is taking the decision at what point. Now this matrix, whenever you worked with Romano, you have always the impression he always knew what we will discover later. So still we have here the next matrix where he was putting, we see here the stakeholders are shown below, client, designer, construction company. We have here the different operation phases of the project and the projects and definitions we have to make the project successful. So we have overlaying three axes already of decision. And the next point is to fill a matrix like this with knowledge. It means that whenever you have knowledge, you can put it into the matrix, and the matrix put it at the right point where the decision maker can look at it. And so at the end of this project, we will have a database where everybody can quickly find the information he needs for his point of interest and his decision. Now, how can we reduce building costs? Feasibility studies. We have to give more importance to feasibility studies, but they should not be only architectural, but we have to address the global costs. We have to address as well remodeling space, a life cycle hospital approach, and we have to integrate already a management project. So the feasibility studies become an important part. For operating costs or in-use costs, we can do, of course, many decisions impact the in-use costs, operation costs, like outsourcing. And many projects start without having a maintenance project, how to run the hospital and how the logistics will work. We see a typical cost of operation costs is 60% labor cost and 40% cost of supplies. If we look at the labor cost, we see that really 83% are spent on primary processes, it means treatment, while 70% only for logistics. This is pretty good if you compare it to different industrial organizations. And we have, when we look for the materials, we see that 50% is used for the primary process, 50% for the secondary process. Where we as architects can interfere is in energy, for instance. Energy is something, this is 6%. But 6% out of 40% means it's 2% of the overall budget of a hospital. So it doesn't seem big, but we were looking deeper into it, and we took a reference project. This is a project we were presenting in 2008 to Romano. It's the Princess Grace Hospital in Monaco. And we were working on this project with engineers to bring down the energy cost. We could have taken as well the Maya Hospital. It would have been the same discussion. It's a hospital where we're trying to optimize the envelope, to optimize so that we have less sunshade, so we have less cooling energy. We were putting all the logistic in a logistic basement, operation theaters, and all the hot floors behind, and the administration below, and everything was put on seismic antivibral plots. Look in the gallery, look on the Belvedere with a stunning view over the Bay of Monaco. And what we tried to achieve was to spend 4 times less energy than in the project before. So the more simple we are, orientation and things we learned 10,000 years ago, the most effective elements in environmental gain are the less expensive. And the more and more we come to sophisticated system, the more money we spend to get finally very little environmental gain. It came out that in our scheme we had energy, so we were going for sea cooling, we were looking for tree generation, photovoltaic use of course, and using absorption chillers. It was a very sophisticated way to do, but we had as well calculated the energy cost, and we found out with all our efforts we can save 40%. This means 500,000 euros. Compared to investment costs of 10 million, who represent around about 3% of the budget, it still will mean we have a return of invest in 20 years, but on the other side, we have a future-proof building. How can we reduce life cycle costs? And this is the most tricky part. And to explain it, how we approached and discussed this point is we have the Easy Shrine at the Mie Prefecture in Japan, and every 20 years they rebuild the shrine and burn it. So the next 20 years they rebuild anew. So they have always a new shrine, but they always have a field for castelling. We were working at this time on the hospital in Strasbourg that was involved in a very historic context of a medieval hospital site, very difficult to interfere, but we wanted to keep the hospital on site. We were making a monoblock, we were integrating all flexibility, a modular building with a lot of spaces that were left for future extensions. A nice, wonderful gallery, day-lit gallery, industrial look, a real machine for healthcare. And these are the operation theater with the extension on the sides. But when it came to the point to make the first extension, the image-guided surgery institute of Professor Maresco, they decided to go to the next side. Though hospitals are very complex projects, and we have the very complex, it's a hotel, integrates administration, it has a laundry, a pharmacy, workshops, so it has very different operational demands. And our friends from Netherlands already were breaking down the hotel, office, factory, hot floor in different elements of the hospital. But the main concern still is that we have in current hospital buildings a lot of deficiency, like building outer shell that reached the end of life, new regulation that has to be followed, lacking outpatient clinics and different floor level and heights. And even the more flexibility you give to a building, you will never achieve a building that is fit for future and that is future-proof. So all these investments in flexibility, in modularity, seem to be very expensive and have in the end no real use. Because the problem of the hospitals today is the different lifespans. And it is because we're putting together and nesting together the lifespans of different features, like offices is mixed with hot floor. And this is very expensive because whenever a facility with a short lifetime is fixed, it will affect parts with a longer lifetime. We have here a typical hospital in Switzerland. It's like all hospitals. And when we look over the years, we will see a lot of interventions, additions, things happen to the hospital. And the lifetime hospital approach will allow us in the future to create a hospital that avoids this kind of mess, that avoids the congestion that ends always with a point of no return where we have no possibility to make it work anymore. So the consequences for the renovation are as well that we create a lot of emissions, noise and dust, and we use and spend a lot of money for temporary structures. This represents a great strain to the constitution of patients and staff, and a loss of activity as a risk. So we have to find new ways of hospital structures, and we have to find, of course, a way where we provide backup areas for replacement of buildings, modular, and we call it the life cycle hospital approach. Here we see the hospital as it is today and the future plan, how this can be solved. And this is it was a part to see in this study with Romano how we can achieve a better way to create hospitals that are future-proof and that can integrate new facilities. And here we have this castle space that allows us future extensions. In 2017, we made a competition in Luxembourg for a life cycle hospital, where we clearly see how we separate the block with the wards from the block with a hot floor and with a lower lifespan of facilities. So it works as well for new hospitals as well as it works for old hospitals. Here we see in the graphic that in the future we have extension fields that allow us to extend the hospital, to build new facilities while to reuse or demolish old facilities. Now we come to the last point, the social cost. We have a lot of constraints, and this is one of the wonderful graphics of Romano, where we see it's like a mandala, Indian mandala. The more you look at it, the more you understand the complexity behind and the beauty of his thinking. We have the coast in the middle. Around we have the timeline with the different stages of construction, and on the outside the constraints from the society, geographic context, impacting the coast and the design. And when we have built the hospital, the whole mandala turns again. For instance, we have a change in legislation. It changes the project, and so we are turning and turning, and so the project will always continuously change. This is the last matrix that was provided by Romano, and this will be the basis for our new workshop, because we found the stakeholders that work with us in the work group, that is South African UISS and ANAP in France, who have the tools that already are used by the university hospitals. And, well, we have our workshop in 2018 on the 28th of May, and we will see you in Paris, and we will hopefully be able to continue the work of Romano. Thank you very much.